this morning. It is wet out there from the Midwest, and of course, due to Arthur there along the Carolina coast, we're going to talk about who will see more flooding as the week progresses. And as this rain with no name could bring higher totals, perhaps than Arthur. We're tracking the first named tropical storm of the season more than 2 weeks before the official start on June 1st. The storm battering the Outer Banks with gusty winds, heavy rain. Meteorologist Mike Seidel will join us live from Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, for a look at the conditions. It's all coming up right here, right now on AMHQ. Welcome into the show. I'm meteorologist Stephanie Abrams alongside meteorologist Jim Cantore and Jen Carfagno as we help prepare you for a really wet week, especially along the East Coast. We'll have the very latest on Tropical Storm Arthur in a moment, but first we want to take you into the Midwest. Heavy rain did fuel some flooding in Chicago. Cars cautiously moved through flooded streets, water rippling and splashing under the wheel wells here. There are reports of flooding on, some streets down here into downtown Chicago. A record 3.11 inches of rain fell at O'Hare Sunday, bringing Chicago's monthly total to 8.19 inches, making it the third wettest May on record. But Jim, Chicago's kind of done with their rain, which is good, right? We're finished with it there.
They'll get a few showers, but the rest of the week is completely dry. But I really do think it's interesting. We kind of pick up this story where we left it on MHQ on Friday, and now we're still raining in through here. So they've gotten in 4 days, Stephanie, about a quarter of their yearly rainfall. That's an incredible stat, and this is a part of this upper low, which we will watch. The big story this week is to see what happens in southern Appalachia, all right? Because we're talking about big rain from Western Virginia all the way down into potentially northeast Georgia. So here we go. Lots of flood reports, as you can imagine, in and around Chicago with the kind of rain that pretty much set up in an east-west fashion. But you go back and look at May 14th through the 17th. So look, it's the last 4 days. You can see these areas with 5 to 8 right across the heart of the city. And this is a very spread out, very highly laden asphalt and concrete city. It's big. All right. And, when you start talking about that kind of rainfall, it's going to drain into, you think it's going to drain into the lake. No, it's actually going to drain right into the Des Plaines River and then down to the Kankakee River and then all the way west to the Mississippi. And that's how that all works. But again, this is the standout stat right here. 21% of the average yearly rainfall with 2 events. Wow. All right. So there's the Des Plaines River pretty much goes from Racine County in Wisconsin down toward Joliet and then dumps off into the Waukegan River and then heads over toward the Mississippi in a couple of different ways. But either way, I mean, this has just been phenomenal rainfall in through here. Cedar Grove, Wisconsin, 6 inches. Bloomington, Minnesota, 4.4. You know what's kind of interesting is it's been dry up to the north over the last 14 days. The wettest spots have really been Chicago and Iowa, which is where we had those events from a couple of weeks ago. Here's Cadillac, Saginaw, Michigan. It's been awful in terms of the rain here as well. And this is where we're going to watch it highlight today, okay, as our upper low drops now away. We're in this little dry area in Chicago. We'll get a few showers, but I think, the axis of the heavy rain with the tropical flow heads up through the Ohio River, Cincinnati, Dayton, the Miami Valley, and through that I-75 corridor is going to be very, very wet today. Jen, if you're driving I-75 actually from Detroit all the way down toward Atlanta.
And we'll see who steals the show today, right here, because Chicago stole it yesterday with all the rainfall. We're looking at you, Detroit. Major rain in the forecast in the Motor City. A flood watch in effect until 8 o'clock tonight. A lakeshore flood warning also in effect until 4 o'clock this afternoon. The prolonged rain could bring up to 4 inches in localized spots with widespread pockets of 2 to 3 inches. And like we saw in Chicago, the challenge is when you get that in just a couple of hour time frame, these big rainfall rates, that's when you run into trouble and flooding problems. So let's get right into it with your forecast today. We are watching this whole system, this big upper level low. This is going to be with us for several days. So let's talk more about details. Today, not only the threat for heavy rainfall, but we're going to be watching for perhaps some thunderstorms, watching, that threat for flooding from Dayton down through Cincinnati, all the way down into Kentucky, including around Lexington. Jim mentioned that I-75 corridor, that's it. So here we go with rainfall this morning that we're going to see continuing. What you got to watch out for is when you get into these training situations. Look how the rain is set up in this forecast from Louisville up to, east of Indianapolis, across eastern Indiana, right up into Fort Wayne. And it's repeating itself, training over and over again. If that sets up and doesn't move, thankfully in the forecast it does move a little bit, we really could see some bigger issues when it comes to flooding. So we have those showers. We have some thunderstorms that we have the potential right through today and then again tomorrow. So here we go today around Lexington to give you a closer inspection. It's off and on. You know, yes, you'll have some dry times. It's not going to rain every moment of the day, but it's not just the rain. It's possible you get some thunderstorms that could be a little punchy through here. So watching out for that. Louisville to Lexington right through this evening. You've got a batch of heavy rain coming in and then just a few more showers overnight. But then there's another round coming in tomorrow morning. Look at Lexington all the way up to Cincinnati. We've got some thunderstorms with heavy rain potential back in there. So here's where right now we are showing the heaviest of rainfall, 3 to 4 inches. Again, that I-75 corridor. We'll get an inch or two around Louisville. There'll be some spot in between that gets some big rain too. And there could be areas that get isolated more rainfall than this. Steph.
And investigators from the National Weather Service will fan out today to investigate possible tornado damage in Louisiana. Twisters reported in 5 Louisiana parishes Sunday, including this one in Evangeline Parish. Paramedics in Acadia Parish took at least 6 people. I suppose they tweeted is what that should say, that they took at least 6 people to the hospital. So let's take it down into the south today. And what is actually happening to cause all this? Arthur, there's Arthur, right? Just hanging on the coast here. It's going to make its closest path to the Outer Banks. We'll have meteorologist Mike Seidel live from that. That actually feels a trough over here and is going to get pulled in that direction. But can you believe it? It's what, our 6th year in a row that we've had a named storm before June 1st. Pretty remarkable, isn't it? Otherwise, you notice these two sticking out like a sore thumb? Well, this is going to get absorbed into this low pressure, and then this is the culprit that's going to keep the East Coast cloudy and wet literally all week long. That low pressure I just showed you cuts off from the jet stream, and it means it's going to be wet, it's going to be cloudy, it's going to be rainy, and I'm not kidding you, all week long. That is not an exaggeration. There's nothing to move it. There's nothing to give it a push. Otherwise, showers and thunderstorms here along the I-10 corridor, Biloxi, Pascagoula on into Mobile, Pensacola. There is that threat for some storms today from Ohio all the way down into the south. Speaking of the south, we can show you hour by hour what it's looking like for us here, and we will see those showers and thunderstorms get even more potent as we head into the afternoon hours and into the evening hours as well. And then it just continues. This is what it's going to look like day after day after day after day. Into Florida we go. Showers and thunderstorms are possible as we head through the day. Now, all the rain today will shift south and east tomorrow in 12 minutes, while the highest flood threat will be in this little strip of yellow. Wait for it, maybe. Yes? No? All right. We'll show you that a little bit later. Jen, let's talk about Tropical Storm Arthur. I feel like that's what everyone's, thinking about. Where is it?
Well, yeah, we've got the live cameras trained on 3 locations on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Tropical Storm Arthur should sideswipe the Barrier Islands this morning. It's unleashing some heavy rain, squally conditions right now. Arthur is the first named system of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. It formed Saturday, 16 days before the official start of the season. This is the 6th consecutive year with a named Atlantic storm before June the 1st, which is the official start of the season. All right, beaches on North Carolina's Outer Banks just reopened Saturday. They've been closed since mid-March because of the coronavirus pandemic. New this morning, even with Arthur approaching the Outer Banks, visitors were simply ecstatic to finally get their day in the sun.
It feels good to get the fresh air.
It's great. It's beautiful out. I mean, it's a really nice weekend.
Waves, sunshine, and relaxation.
We've all been pinned up in the house, and we're ready to get out and about.
It's nice to get out and get away from work and be able to actually go to places that have stores open. So that's kind of cool.
A beautiful beach day before Arthur stirs up the surf and sends the stir-crazy back indoors.
Oh man, it's awesome. Quarantine for 2 months gets you a little crazy.
COVID-19 still has beaches in Virginia closed, so some people slipped across the border.
We decided to take a jaunt about an hour and a half away, so we're really enjoying this beautiful weather.
Most beachgoers on the Outer Banks seem to follow the rules and keep their distance.
Everyone has pretty much stayed away. That's 20, 30 feet. That's about 10 feet, so it's good staying away from everyone. I think everyone's respecting it.
Pools remain closed, so it's beach only for water fun. Restaurants are allowed to provide drive-through or delivery only. Despite pandemic restrictions and the approaching tropical storm, beachgoers couldn't have been happier with their Sunday in the sun.
We're early in the season, which that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I don't think it's going to be a super intense event. I'm a veteran, been here 16 years, been through many hurricanes, many tropical storms, and I'm not scared at all.
All right, so you know the names that were used, right, if they don't get retired. And interesting to note that Hurricane Arthur hit the Outer Banks 6 summers ago. The last time this list was used on the 4th of July was peak winds of 100 miles an hour. Now, that Arthur did make history, too. It became the earliest in the season hurricane to make landfall in North Carolina since records began in 1851. But, Jim, thankfully, this is not going to be a hurricane.
It is not. It's going to get interesting, though, as it starts to transition, because it could actually get stronger as it heads out over the Atlantic, which is kind of interesting. So let's take a look at Arthur. Again, the south side of this thing is completely convectionless. The circulation is on the southern flank, if you will, of the convection. But there is decent bubbling going. There's decent banding rolling in, through Pamlico and Albemarle Sound. Here's another wave that's going to come up this way as well. So we may get a little bit of a break on the OBX or the Outer Banks, and then eventually that next wave will kind of ripple on up. Look at this, though. The wind field, it's all north and east side loaded, which is kind of what you typically would see with a disorganized tropical storm, okay? At its closest approach, it's going to come close to Hatteras, all right, and then scoot on out. You can see right now we don't have any tropical storm gusts, at least yet, and the buoys are showing water temperatures right around 70 to 75 degrees, especially over the Gulf Stream, which is where this is moving right now and probably getting, it's bubbling. Either way, this is a beach hazard, okay? You're talking about horrible rip currents. You saw the waves Jen was showing in through there. It's going to be brutal at times, sure. Is the rain going to taper off between the bands? Yes, but then we'll get right back into it. So let's see what the guidance shows, because it really looks like the worst impacts for the Outer Banks and the Tidewater will certainly be today at its closest approach. All right, so again, model still shows kind of this lopsided, northern loaded, eastern loaded center, but then it pulls on out by this evening. Okay, and we kind of wait for the evolution of that mid-level low to kind of sit itself over the Tennessee Valley. But rainfall, especially in some of these bands, could easily be 1 to 3 inches. It just depends really where it falls, and it's going to push the water up the Pamlico and the Albemarle Sound. But notice this, Wednesday morning, we actually get a 60-mile-per-hour extratropical cyclone. So a little intensity from the mid-latitude jet stream, Steph, actually allows this thing to bump up a little bit in intensity.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Interesting.
Yeah.
Will it or won't it make landfall? Dun, dun, dun. Just skirt the coast, huh? All right, time now for your Monday morning headlines. And Super Typhoon Umpun is on track to strike the South Asian nation of Bangladesh. The monster storm has 160-mile-an-hour winds equivalent to a Category 5 hurricane. Amphan has exploded in strength, intensifying by 120 miles an hour in only 48 hours. Also, the surge with this could be, 18 feet, maybe even higher. This could be just absolutely devastating. And crews in Florida say they're battling 81 separate brushes or wildfires across the state this morning. They have scoured nearly 15,000 acres. The worst of the fires is burning in the Naples area of southwest Florida. Officials say at least 7 homes and 23 other structures have been destroyed in Collier County. That fire alone has burned 9,000 acres. So are we going to be getting any rain? Well, there's a look at all your wildfires. Will we get help in these areas? It does look like we will have that humidity and that moisture, which is the good news as we head through the week.